5:30 tomorrow. Tonight on our program, the Super Bowl of American advertising. Which of the ads caught your eye? Joining us to dissect the advertising playbook is David Warschawski, CEO of Warschawski, which has been named the U.S. Small Ad Agency of the Year for 3 years in a row. The Super Bowl of advertising. David, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Great to be here. Before we begin, to all of our friends in Raven Nation, and we have a lot of great relationships with the Raven organization. As a Baltimore guy, terribly happy and really proud of them. I just want to say congratulations to them.
And second that as well. What a game.
Amazing.
I didn't actually have enough time to watch the ads, which I was happy about. So,
well, for us, that's as much of the game, but this time we really had to pay attention to both sides, the game and the Super Bowl advertisement.
Let's spend a minute on why this is such a phenomenon. The idea that companies spend incredible amounts of money. I'm hearing $3-4 million for a 30-second spot. I think that's a lot of money.
It is, and it's actually gone up. When people may make the comment, is the economy tight? We look at last year, the average spot was $3.5 million. Today, or this year, it was $3.7 to $3.8 million. So why are folks willing to spend that kind of money? Well, where else do you get 111 million eyeballs at one time focused on your commercial? And that's just in the United States. Across the world, we're talking about last year, 167 million people at one time focused on what you have to tell them. If you do it well, wow, what an impact you can have. But you can also do it poorly, and I think we're going to talk about both sides of that coin.
And it's an increasingly rare thing to get that sort of audience all at once. Everybody goes to Twitter, other social media, the internet, 500 cable channels.
Correct. There's a really interesting dynamic that's grown up around the Super Bowl. I don't think you see that in many other events, even in world stage events like the Olympics, where you also get mass eyeballs. The Super Bowl has become a place that people come to watch the ads, in some cases as much, if maybe not more, than they come to watch the Super Bowl. So in today's TV age, where people are fast forwarding or DVRing through commercials, people actually want to see the commercials in the Super Bowl.
Well, let's start with one. You made a list. I made a list informally, and this was number one on both of our lists. This was a truck commercial, and you don't see any trucks for a long time in this, and it features a voice that not everybody is going to remember. Let's take a look.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer.
That's the voice of the great Paul Harvey, who was a radio news icon for decades and decades, broadcasting out of Chicago. Passed away a few years ago. And I suppose, David, it doesn't really matter if people remember who that is.
I don't think it made a difference if people recognized who it was. I think it makes a difference how this ad was shot and narrated. And I think one of the points we want to make before we begin dissecting commercials, there are two ways to look at advertisements. The first is most people, when they talk about Super Bowl advertisements, they look at it through the lens of, was this good entertainment? Did I have fun watching it? But as marketing communications experts, we look at it through the lens of, was this a good advertisement? And let's talk about what a good advertisement wants to do. A good advertisement wants to either change a perception or create a winning perception in the mind of its target audience, and or it wants to move that target audience to take an action, most of the time to purchase something. So that's a very different lens, and we at Warschawski use a proprietary model. We call it the Warschawski BEST model, and the acronym stands for, number one, B, it has to be brand-centric. 2, E, it has to make an emotional connection with its target audience. 3, it has to stand out and be memorable. And T, it has to have a target. That means both, does it have a clear target audience and does it have a business objective in mind?
What was the target audience for this spot?
So great. Let's take it through its paces to see why this was such a great ad. Is it brand-centric? Totally brand-centric for Dodge Ram. You can even see at the end of the ad it says, guts and glory. This is all about the ideals of the farmer, and it makes a call to the farmer in all of us. Not just are we selling to farmers, but the ideals of the farmer in all of us. So brand-centric, 100%. Emotional connection, great emotional connectivity in that advertisement. Stand out just in the way it was shot, and the narration, it's a completely different pace and look and feel from all the other advertisements we saw. And then the target, it's talking to the farmer, and it's talking to that hardworking, salt-of-the-earth, middle American, and saying, if you share the ideals that we share, then this truck is right for you. Go out and buy our truck. If you believe in some of the splashy things or of the moment things, then our truck is not right for you.
You know, I liked it because it was different in sound, in tone than all the other. It jumped out that this is a different ad. You know, the other notable thing, which I'll get to after I remind everybody that if you want to chime in on the subject of Super Bowl ads, we'll have the number on the screen. That wasn't a 30-second spot by any stretch. We talked about how much it costs for 30 seconds. Right. That was a minute and a half or 2 minutes long.
And again, that's a great point in that a lot of people think the economy may have affected Super Bowl advertising spending. And in fact, this year is the year that we have the most 60-second commercials in the history of the Super Bowl. Last time, in 2009, was our last high with 13. This year we had 15 times that advertisers were willing to spend for a 60-second commercial to make their point.
All right, let's look at something you didn't like. This was a beer ad, right?
Correct.
We'll just look at a few seconds of this Beck's ad. This is a beer for fish.
You're straight on, exactly. So I don't get this commercial. This is, by the way, an Anheuser-Busch brand, a new brand, Beck Sapphire. So if we put it through its paces, brand, what does this brand stand for? Fish? I don't get that. What's the emotional connectivity? There seems to be zero emotional pull here. Stand out, a fish singing a old song in a sort of strange way, doesn't do anything for us. And then the target audience, there's absolutely no clarity of target audience. So we put it through all four paces. It's almost a zero in each one of those scales. And that means it's a real loser. This was a low. Anheuser-Busch had some really nice commercials. It had some other ones that weren't so great. But this was a real low for Anheuser-Busch this year.
How does that happen in the Madison Avenue world? You've worked for big ad agencies. You've run a small to medium-sized shop. So the client decides we need to have a Super Bowl ad, and we want the coolest, hippest Super Bowl ad. Is that how that happens?
So it's tough to Monday morning quarterback these, but I can give you two of the main scenarios in which this happens. Number one, it could be just plain bad advertising, bad idea, bad conception that gets sold through and people buy into it. That's possible. But often what happens is there's an idea that comes about, and then there's groupthink, or too many people put their hands into the pie, or too many chefs in the kitchen, and it's overthought or overworked, and the original good idea ends up being watered down or changed in some way to make everyone happy. And we know when we try and make everyone happy, generally we end up with a pretty bad result, and this was a really bad result.
That's one of the things I'm most curious about with that Paul Harvey farmer spot. Who in the room knew that there was this Paul Harvey clip? He's been off the air for probably a decade now. Somewhere there was a little stroke of genius.
Well, that comes from clarity of what your brand is and who your target audience. If you know you want to connect with the farmer, that hardworking, salt-of-the-earth type of a buyer or a consumer, then they do the research to find, well, what would be a motive? What would be emotional connecting to that target audience? And to your point, what gets us out of what everybody else is doing? So pulling that narration was a real stroke of genius to get the sound to be different from what the rest of the advertisers were doing, and also the way that the video was played. It was single image after single image, as opposed to most of the other advertisements you see, quick movement, lots of activity, or trying to be sort of jokey or gimmicky. Really smart in the way they executed that ad.
Let's talk to Laura in Alexandria. Laura, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
This is fabulous. Unfortunately, I can't say that I watched. I can't say that I watched the football game.
But you watched the ads.
But I watched the ads.
Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, actually, the one that you played, the one with Paul Harvey.
Anything else catch your eye, or anything else you didn't like?
Well, as far as that, speaking to the populace is concerned, let's face it, most of the people that are going to watch the football game are are men. Sometimes women, but mostly men. I watch Downton Abbey.
Well, good for you. Here at a PBS station, we're glad to hear that. Thank you for the phone call.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do like the Downton Abbey viewers. And somewhere in here we can get rid. There we go. I also wanted to talk about branding. We'll play some other spots here for a second, but we talked about how 100 million plus people tune in. They must have seen, I don't know how many shots of the Harbaugh family, Jack Harbaugh, Jackie Harbaugh,
Right.
John, Jim, in terms of branding of those individuals. Super Bowl of branding.
Couldn't have been much better. And for the Harbaugh family in total, I think this is going to be a wonderful thing. And I think both for Jim and John, both for their individual brand and as brand that will work together, it'll work in a great way. If you had to draw a comparison, maybe the Harbaugh family is now similar to the Elway family. A good, clean-cut, decent, warm family. That's a dream for marketers, especially when there's a sports tie-in. But think about the Harbaugh, the two brothers as coaches, what kind of opportunities this opens up now. Either anything that has to do with family, anything that has to do with siblings, anything that has to do with sibling rivalry. So even the Miller Lite commercial, tastes great, less filling, taking a different side of the coin. Those are the kind of brands that they can now move into endorsing. And when you have a sports tie-in, it opens up all kinds of avenues. And then fourth, they have brother or brothers. And think of all the brands that use the term brother or brothers within their name. So all the avenues that are now open to them as marketers, they really are going to do nicely after this.
Let's talk to Skip in Cecil County. Skip, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
The best commercial I ever saw on the Idiot Box was the Budweiser commercial with the frogs. I'd like to know what his commercial or what his analysis is of that.
Okay, good question. Thanks very much. I remember that commercial. It was Budweiser croaking.
It was the croaking frogs. That was actually an anomaly of an ad. It caught a lot of people's attention, was very memorable, did very nicely for Budweiser. Kind of got away from the essence of who Budweiser is. I think the Was Up commercial or the Clydesdale commercials for Budweiser's has done much better. And this year, Budweiser actually had a very nice entry with the name, the new baby Clydesdale, that took it back to the sort of Americana and emotional connect of the brand. And it was interesting how they extended that into social media by showing that ad and then allowing fans to vote on what should be the name of this new baby Clydesdale.
Here's the ad, just taking a look at it on YouTube, and this is a longer spot. This thing is a minute. Let's let it play for a minute because this thing was really well done. You see the Clydesdale growing up. The truck coming to, I'm doing play-by-play on a, on a beer commercial. All right, the truck comes to take the Clydesdale away. We fast forward 3 years into a Clydesdale appearance in Chicago and take a look. Now, stay tuned here for a second. Let's go back to the screen, or I can pause it here for a second, because what we see here is just what you're talking about, migrating this concept back into social media.
And this is a real trend. A number of advertisers are, number one, they're pre-releasing advertisements to extend the value that they're getting out of their spend. So when we talk about this big dollar investment, how do you maximize it? So they pre-release, and then they're looking for social media exposure afterwards or engagement. Coke did this with the Coke Chase. Audi did this with their commercial where they actually allowed their fans to pick from 3 endings, and the one that the fans chose is which they played. Now this was rated very highly for us on our best model. Brand-centric for Budweiser, a true emotional connection. Is it stand out? Yes, it stands out. And does it have a clear target in mind? Yes, so this did very nicely and falls back into line with Budweiser's staple, the Clydesdale sort of approach, the Americana approach, pull at the heartstrings. A solid, very nice entry by Budweiser
So
here.
we've seen the Americana approach for trucks and beer. Actually, if you watch a routine Sunday NFL game, it's all trucks, beer, maybe some cell phones thrown in. That's pretty much it.
You'd actually be surprised if you took time to analyze it. You see a tremendous diversity of advertisers, not just in the NFL, but within sports altogether. But certainly nostalgia and Americana or patriotism are things that advertisers often go to.
Let's talk to Joe in Baltimore County. Joe, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
David, I want you to reflect on the fact that the Paul Harvey Dodge Ram ad was actually poetry. And I've never seen or heard poetry selling product on television before. And I think that's one of the distinguishments that it had. It may have struck people in a very different way. It certainly struck me in a different way, and until I recognized what was going on. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
That's an outstanding observation, Joe. And when we talk about the standout component, think about how that stacks up against all the other commercials that were on TV that evening. All of them had a certain cadence. All of them had approach, both visually and verbally, and this broke that cadence, and that's what made it very memorable. Is that a risk from a brand? Yes, but if you're trying to stand out and be memorable, those are the kind of risks you want to take, and they did a beautiful job, and you could not be more spot on, Joe, by noticing that.
What else did you not like? There was a Coke commercial you didn't like.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can find it real fast.
It's Coke Chase. If you look for that on YouTube, I'm sure that you'll find it. We see Coke as really having strayed. Coke was such an iconic brand that was a great advertiser, and it's gone into this more flash than substance approach over the last couple of years. I think, here we have it.
Is this a spot? Let's see how long this is. This is another minute-long spot. Well, let's cut to the chase here. What happens?
No pun intended, right?
Exactly.
So there's a mashup of different movies put together, and this is Coke going for the flash, for the gimmicky, and for the integrated approach of having people vote on who should win the Coke chase. Now, I actually did this while watching the Super Bowl. The experience online, the load time was not particularly good. The interactivity of the site was not particularly great. No brand-centric messaging on the website there. And then when the winner was announced, which actually happened to be the Showgirls, it was a very sort of lame, non-brand-centric result that left a lot of people saying, where's the Coke that we know and love? Where is joy? Where is happiness? Where is the Mean Joe Green? Where is I'd love to buy the world a Coke? We miss that from Coke, and this is sort of an overarching thing we've been seeing lately from advertisers where they're looking for the gimmick. They're looking for the flash. They're looking for the thing that's hot at the moment. And often they let go of the things that we all know work so well in advertising. Staying true to who your brand is, making that emotional connection, being on point with your target. And that's really a shame to have seen that with Coke this year.
Let's talk to Barbara in Baltimore County. Barbara, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi.
What I'd like to know is about the target market for these ads. As a woman who watches football, I found it rather disturbing that there didn't seem to be any ads that were targeted to women viewers at all. Comments, please?
Thanks for the phone call. Now, a lot of women watch the Super Bowl.
100%. And all sporting events today, we really should not discount the female demographic. There's strong female viewership in most sports today. So advertisers need to keep that in mind. But also on the flip side of that, we need to keep in mind, who are we selling to? So for example, one of our winners this year was the Axe Apollo commercial. Now, when you're targeting 14 to 28-year-old males, then by definition, you're not going to find women who are going to like that commercial. Is that a bad thing? No, it means the advertiser knows what he or she is doing, and they're very focused on their target audience. So we can actually look at an example of this. This is a commercial that probably most women are not going to love because it's meant for the 14 to 28-year-old male.
So the lifeguard rescues the woman. Where did the astronaut come from? Doesn't matter.
So Axe has a program where they're sending a winner to space camp. And the messaging here is Axe's brand is all about making the 14 to 28-year-old male irresistible to women. You wear our stuff, you are a ladies' man automatically. Is it emotionally connected for the 14 to 28-year-old male? 100%. Did it stand out? Just the simple view of an astronaut walking onto a beach, taking off his helmet, seeing a geeky guy in the astronaut outfit, and this hot girl running towards him, for that target audience is gold. And then Target, yes, it's right on for the Target. So is this a great ad? It is for its target audience. Will everyone like it? No, but by definition, that is a perfectly fine thing in the world of advertising.
Will their sales, would they, for their money, expect their sales to jump this month, next month, or is it a longer-term push on these type of ads?
Generally speaking, Super Bowl ads are not looking for an immediate payoff the next day. They're not looking for someone to walk into the dealership tomorrow and buy the Dodge Ram. Most of the time, Super Bowl ads are what we call brand-building ads. But should they have some correlation to driving traffic over the next couple weeks to buy the Dodge Ram, as an advertiser, we certainly hope to see that. But most of the time, these are aimed at building a winning perception in the mind of the target audience that over weeks and months and hopefully years are reinforced that drive consumer behavior and ultimately purchase.
Let's talk to David in Carroll County. David, thank you for calling. Go ahead. Hello, David. Are you there? David left the phone. Let's see if there's a delay. David, are you there? All right, skip David for a second. How's the advertising business overall? We talked about the economy, still fighting its way out of the doldrums.
In general, I think what you see reflected in Super Bowl advertising is what's happening in the marketing communications industry as a whole. People are beginning to come back to it. They're being cautiously optimistic, but they're coming back to it. And there's a greater sense now is our time to put our feet back into the water and see how can we reconnect with that target audience that maybe we let slip a little bit. And obviously, as marketing communications agency, we're happy to see that.
How does the new media world, the social media world, affect what you do day in, day out?
It has an important role to play. I think one of the things that we would tell most people is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The fundamentals of great marketing communications still exist and are still incredibly important. Now we have social media, which is a new channel, and that's all it is. It's a new channel, just like when the fax came out or when email came out. It's a new channel for us to make a connection with our target audience. But it isn't the only thing, and it isn't the only way. So we need to find ways to use it wisely and to integrate it. And it does play an incredibly important role in integrating, and most of the time we talk about it as being an amplifier. So that's the way you've seen it being used within the Super Bowl is advertisers are using it as a way to amplify or extend the messaging and get more bang for their buck by using social media on top of the ad spend.
I was struck by how small those numbers are, though, relative to the 110, 20 million people who might have seen the ad. They get excited if there were a few thousand retweets of something.
Exactly.
The scale is very different. Let's take a final phone call here from Jerry in Harford County. Jerry, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to hear your comments about the USO Jeep commercial and maybe whether we think that may have crossed the line when we're talking about branding and military service.
Jerry, thanks very much. Not familiar with the spot.
It was an interesting spot. I think parts of it were well done. And Jerry, your question sort of alludes to a little bit of the concern I had with it. It rated highly from an emotional connect, from a standout, not so clear about the target audience, but what was the brand? I'm not sure I understood. What was the connection that the Army or service and Jeep had? It didn't make that connection very clearly, which made me feel a little bit like it may be using service to help its brand. Where you see Dodge Ram was very authentic, organic. You got the connection. And also, Dodge Ram extended this campaign by naming 2013 the year of the farmer. And there's a lot of work that they're doing behind the scenes to support the farmer. So that authenticity shone through, where I'm not sure it showed through so much with the USO.
David Warschawski, thank you for being with us. Appreciate the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. We're back Thursday with Your Money in Business. Have a good night.